Welcome to the Journal of Expressive Writing, open mic and feature. It is August 25th, 2022. I'm Kelly Dumar. I'm so pleased to be here to host and produce this wonderful monthly event for you, and really excited to share that Riham Adly from Egypt is going to be reading her flash fiction in English to us tonight. We're really excited about that. But before we go any further, I just want to introduce you to the founder of the Journal of Expressive Writing, Jen Minotti. Jen, would you want to welcome everybody and say a few words?
Hi, everybody. Welcome tonight. I missed you all in July. We were taking a little vacation for the summer. I just want to thank Kelly for hosting our open mics monthly, and with her help, Katerina, and welcome Riham Adly tonight as our featured author. It's 1 a.m. I just learned about 5 minutes ago in Egypt, so I'm even more grateful for her time and being up at this hour to join us. So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I know there's a lot of other places you could be, and I look forward to hearing Riham and the other 15 writers who have signed up. So thank you to everybody.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks for founding the journal and making it possible for us to be here together in this community. I am going to actually spotlight Riham and spotlight myself. Just before I introduce Riham, I like to have us open our Journal of Expressive Writing with a poem that I think really kind of speaks to the moment, or maybe to certainly our human condition. And I'm going to be reading tonight the poem Keep Yourself at the Beginning of the Beginning by Hannah Emerson. Keep yourself at the beginning of the beginning. Please try to help me go to the joy that is trying to go to the beautiful, helpful beginning of the very trying freedom that we make our great, great, great light that is nothing but the laughter that is fooling us into believing that we go to the trash bin that is your life, that becomes the treasures that live in the bottom of the bin that is your life. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, please try to dive down to the beautiful muck that helps you get that the world was made from the garbage at the bottom of the universe that was boiling over with joy that wanted to become you. Yes, yes, yes. Please try to go to the colors that kiss you, great, great, great person of the light that is becoming you, yes. Yes, please try to keep yourself in the bottom of the bin. Yes, yes, please try to go to the kissing muck that is very true to your life. Yes, yes, please try to meet me there. Yes, yes, please try to bring your beautiful nothing there. Yes, yes. I'll put the link to the name of the poem in the chat room. But for now, I want to introduce our featured reader all of the way from Egypt tonight. She's going to be reading her flash fiction. And I've titled tonight after a quote of Riham's about finding that writing flash fiction is her superpower as a woman living in Egypt and as a writer. Her voice has been marginalized, and she has found that writing flash fiction in particular has been just the right genre for her to find a way to express herself as a woman writing in English. She writes that flash fiction is a freedom from feeling helpless and victimized in a culture that marginalizes women's voices. Her book, Love is Make-Believe, her collection of flash fiction, she says, is a testament of pain and injustice that either I personally went through and that of my ancestors and contemporary sisters. It is a book of a marginalized voice. In a book review in Idle Inc., a writer wrote that Love is Make-Believe is described as a powerful offering with refreshingly strong female characters who demonstrate that it is possible to push against the restraints which have been placed upon them. Female readers will be galvanized, male readers will be awakened. We know her as Riham, but her friends in Egypt know her by another name. Her writer friends call her Rose. Roses are a symbol of love and sensuality, but also a reminder of change. A bud blooms beautifully, only to lose its petals and shrivel into the earth, she writes. Its scent meanders through memory like the sweet surmise of a soliloquy spoken in the darkest of silences. Riham will be speaking out of that dark silence tonight, reading to us her flash fiction. What the publisher says about her collection, Love is Make-Believe, is that princess, priestess, runaway, slave girl, heiress, aquatic siren, women live thousands of lives in the flash fiction of Riham Adly, sometimes in the course of one story. A writer from modern Egypt, she reflects the complex reality of a world that can be both cosmopolitan and insular, a changing world where women risk new roles, but still struggle to push through family and cultural conditioning that tells them to expect nothing, stay quiet, be smart. The women in these stories ignore that advice. They expect everything, rebel, push boundaries, speak from the heart. Riham is an award-winning fiction writer and editor from Giza, Egypt. In 2013, her story, The Darker Side of the Moon, won the Macon Award. In 2019, she was longlisted in Brilliant Flash Fiction's food-themed contest. And in 2020, her story, How to Tell a Story from the Heart in Proper Time, was a winner and was included in the 2020 Best Microfiction Anthology. In 2022, her story, Two Peas in a Pod, won second place in the Strand International Flash Fiction Contest. She was nominated for a Pushcart Prize in 2019 and nominated for Best of the Net in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Her flash fiction has appeared in over 60 journals, such as Lee Trail Magazine, Lost Balloon, The Flash Flood, Bending Genres, The Citron Review, The Sunlight Press, Flash Fiction Magazine, Menacing Hedge, Flash Frontier, Flash Back, Ellipsis Zine, Okie Donkey, and New Flash Fiction Review, among others. Riham was the first ever female from Africa and the Middle East to have a debut flash fiction collection published in English, Love is Make-Believe, published in November 2021. We're so pleased to welcome you, Riham, tonight. We look forward to hearing you.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for the generous introduction. And I'm really excited about this. Today, I'll start reading from my collection, Love is Make-Believe. And the first story is going to be titled, What Happens When You Drink Whiskey During a Retrograde in a Pandemic. March 9th, 2020. Dear Diary, they still haunt me to this day. Pistachios and rosewater, Mama's constant ingredients. Their scents absent from my everyday life, yet forever omnipresent. They're particularly strong today, like pain in a limb that's no longer there. Perhaps because Mercury's gone retrograde? It really makes no difference. I've been moving backwards ever since I set foot in this new country, this foreign city, this absent existence. The whiskey tastes like piss. I curse this bastard lung-sucking COVID-19 of a virus as my chest tightens. Outside the window, The women and men rushing into the subway in spite of the freezing cold no longer exist. The smell of coffee spilling from Nino's cafe is also long gone. No clamor, no car horns, no busy streets. It seems absence is quite a thing right now. I stare at the useless plane ticket and the useless brochure sitting on the antique coffee table I dragged all the way from home decades ago. Will they ever take me back? A long, healthy swig of the piss-tasting whiskey warms my throat and numbs the pain that's been growing slow and huge, like the pots of pistachio and rose water pudding Mama used to make back in the day when Baba came back from his travels. Will they ever forgive me? Moth-eating images I tried so hard to banish from my memory resurface. The ice cream shop in Aleppo, around the corner from our house where I used to slip unseen for the clementine flavored booza. I try to shoo them away like the pesticide-resistant flies that won't leave me alone. The boy serving the ice cream had eyes the color of Mama's pistachios, and I don't want to remember. He wasn't really a boy, rather a young man of 19, with firm hands that gripped mine whenever handing me the treats I asked for. You should have seen it coming. The hiss of my indrawn breath startles my ears. I can still hear the listening silence inside the elevator and feel the firm grip of those warm hands pushing me into a corner. I had just started bleeding last month. Before that, I was never really aware of that place between my legs. His thrusts were quick and precise, not one moment wasted on unneeded thrills. Ironically, it happened only hours before my hijab wearing initiation. On that day, the women of the family made sure I understood that chastity was this family's most valuable currency. Years later, after the forced wedding, I ran away to my permanent exile here in New York City. The ice cream boy sent me anonymous letters with weighted words like rape and regret. My desperate mother had probably given him the address. I feel sick and I throw up all over the passport and the picture of Wadi Condil Beach on the travel brochure. But a cold gust escapes the window, bringing along with it the dazzle of yellow sunlight. At this point, I realize I want some sunshine. I just want the beach and the sun. Any beach, any sun, Aleppo, New York. It doesn't really matter. My next story is titled The Brief Chronicled History of the Girl, as told by the realist but yet optimistic African fortune teller. Girl, before your father implanted you in your mother's womb, before being assigned your exes and not the salubrious wives, you were in the water, in the air, in the elements, a triatom that didn't belong to any tribe, any clan, any kabila. In your first incarnation, you were given the name Mary. You splashed in the mud and played with Abdullah and Abel. You bathed in central Eritrea's river Mereb near your church. Your curiosity always hovering like that rare blue-tailed damselfly eager to soar high during rainfall. You knew you were different than your sisters, your sad-eyed aunts, and all your kin. You were whole, uncut, every inch of flesh still your very own. When the time came and one of the boys was to wed you, they pointed to that place between your legs. Impure, they said. The womenfolk in the village knew they had work to do, turning you into one of them. The kind of woman Abel and Abdullah approved of. So when the midwife sliced off your clitoris, the womenfolk came out, satisfied, proud. You didn't resist because you had so much trust, so much love. You became hollowed out, emptied of all what made you, you. On your second incarnation, you wanted to resist what they deemed as your purification. But submission had always been the currency of survival. Your pain spilling faster than your blood filled Kenya's Tana River. You simply died. In this third incarnation, you push away the head cover they force you to wear in the mosque. You scream when your mother drags you to the barber in Beni Suef. You push his hands when the blade nicks your labia minora. You run, bleeding your own river Nile. And when your balking feet can no longer run, you almost lift off with your wings. You smile for the freedom to be had, but girl, you will stay. You will repeat it all in another incarnation. You will not let them use your transvaginal traumatization as a metaphor for chastity. You will not let them veil or erase you because you're not the making of sin. You will not let them deflower the love you have for you. Girl, you will stay because it is amazing how tree stumps sprout back after they've been cut. The third piece I'm reading is titled Release. That day, the air had a drug quality to it, the kind that hovered around the unfamiliar calm of the house. Mama touched her face where Baba's fist last punched her. She looked ethereal with those swollen lips, split lips, and for some reason, all I could hold in my head was an image of that American actress, Angelina Jolie. She was looking at the window's cracked glass. Amani, I think you're possessed, she said. Why are you so sure, Mama? Her inflamed eyes turned here and there. She sniffed with her pink-rimmed nose before lifting a face that opened up like sunrise in layers. There's that big black dog that follows us everywhere. Big black dogs are jinns. Didn't they teach you that in religion class? We need to find a good sheikh to release you. I shuddered at the sound of release. It hissed in my ears. I remember how I felt then. First, it was so unreal, like someone walking straight into a dreamlike night-curved door. But after that, when it started to sink in, I felt discontinued. In a way, I was like this ugly misplaced tooth that had to be pulled out. What about Baba? My truck driver Baba was away. We didn't expect to see him till next week, but I feared for her, for the tragic inevitability of him finding out, and for what could happen after. She dressed in her darkest abaya, picked a niqab to cover her face. I was used to her in loose-fitting, colorful headscarves that allowed some sheaves of blonde hair, of bleached hair to slip out like she usually liked it. In old Cairo, we weaved through congested alleyways and market stalls that sold fruits, spice, kitchenware, fertility remedies, and drugs often abused by truck drivers like my Baba. Mama stopped in front of a little shack at the end of the road where the bustle of life no longer contended. The sheikh, who didn't look at all like a sheikh, welcomed us in, like he was expecting it. He didn't wear the traditional jibba and kaftan. How old is she? 14. He sported a light goatee rather than the hefty beard of the pious. And you? Add another 14. His eyes were the smiling type. After uncovering her face, she smiled back. The sheikh placed a hand on my head and started reciting surahs from the Quran that I couldn't recognize. I have bad memory, but I never forgot when Baba pulled me out of school. Mama begged and begged to let me stay. He broke her nose that day, and much more. When the sheikh was done, he confirmed it. She is possessed. Adijin il-ashik, an enamored jinn, one who's always also a tayyar, a flying type. Quran alone will not be enough. He handed mother a hijab, a kind of protected amulet, and told her that if it didn't work, I would need a zar ritual to exorcise the jinn. When we went back home, I bent over my prayer mat and for days and days kept pleading with the Almighty to keep my winged lover. 2 weeks later, when my Baba left for work, my mama looked as otherworldly as ever, with a row of butterfly stitches right above her perfectly plucked eyebrow. This scar was so deep, there was no turning back on what would happen next. The big black dog still follows us everywhere. I saw him in the market the other day, and right now after your father left. Her hands bloodied the spike-like shards of what was left of the window pane. You'll need a czar. She had the crazed look of someone hell-bent on finishing off loose ends. I feared for my djinn and for my mother. People in the neighborhood practiced the hush-hush rituals in secret while preaching against it in mosques like it was the plague. Baba would find out in the end, and she knew it. A few hours later, we walked right through the smoke screen of incense, its rolling dark and secret smells pulling at me like an umbilical cord around an infant's neck, undulating only to make way for the Tsar woman, decked in screaming red and jingling galagil bracelets. My face felt damp with fever as they started their chanting. Their lead singer's voice loud with calamity. They danced barefoot in a circle, shaking their heads backward and forwards. Regret pounded inside my skull with every beat of drums, but the sounds became muffled like an echo from a faraway place the moment my eyes found the sheikh's clean-shaven, youthful face. I saw a lilt of sadness in his light-filled eyes, like someone not content with the parting. My mama smiled at him, but he didn't smile back. I couldn't breathe, so I tried holding the air in my lungs. I prayed and prayed as the frenzied movements picked up and the woman's chants intermingled with the drumming. The girl woman inside me stirred. I woke up to a deep knowing that broke up from the depth of my soul. All realities were unreal until I decided to dream them into being. A scream took shape inside my chest, and with it came the release I so longed for all my life. I hope there's still time for another piece.
Yes, thank you, Riham.
Okay. This one's titled Picture Perfect. Years ago, before I started stalking you, you were nothing but the virgin I made up in my dreams. You were a quiet man, quick on your feet to soothe in your stuttered coos, but in slow motion. You could read lips like me. You knew the difference between a reactive behavior and a responsive outburst. You had a lot in common with quantum physics. But today, you're walking down the aisles of the supermarket like a G.I. Joe looking for toilet paper. And maybe that once peaceful but now elusive sense of careless inclusion that everyone can afford right now. I inch closer to you and watch your sharp jawline and sniff your calm fragrance of bitter greens. When you look past me onto the empty shelves, I consider handing over the 2 rolls I managed to snatch. But that's not how I imagined our very first meeting. I force a cough, and the look of fear looms in your eyes. You run away from me. Rocking through the night between wanting and not wishing, I wonder if I should skip the appointment I booked to see you in the law firm you work in. What if the words I want to say come out still, like the walls you put between us when you decided to leave a long time ago? That thought didn't come out right. Mother, God rest her soul, used to hate cliches. That's why she gave birth to one, she used to say. In the hospital where I work as a nurse in the geriatric wing, the days pass slowly, like being underwater. I used to take care of the beds, feel them, whisper to them, ask them to be good and patient to all our patients, until one day my mind starts beating furiously and also helplessly when all those people coming into the ER start falling out of breath. The beds run out and there's nowhere to smoke or meditate. When they bring you in, I don't recognize you till after I've hooked you to the very last ventilator and the very last bed we have. You don't look like your recent Instagram photos with the confident emojis and the captions. But you do look at me with eyes so full of gratitude, which I have to admit, cliche or not, is just so dang perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Riham. Wow. How are you doing?
Well, I haven't read my stories in quite a bit, so revisiting them, especially right after our event started, was a little bit triggering, to be honest. Yes, very triggering.
Thank you for your honesty. I know that people really appreciated in the chat room, which you'll have a chance, to read later, the generosity of your sharing. So, are you okay? Is there anything you need?
Oh, that's good.
You okay with chatting a little bit and talking about your writing?
Yes, I
Okay.
am ready.
Okay, good. Well, and it's okay to say no, and it's okay to take a break and tell me what you need if you need to, okay?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay, because I know there is a lot of trauma in these stories, and they're flash fiction, but you have written them, and I know that one of the ways that you approach flash fiction is through the subconscious, and that you see a strong relationship between the generation of flash fiction and your own subconscious. And in fact, that's kind of like one of the ways you draw stories out for yourself, and you teach others to draw them out for themselves too. So how did you get?
Yes, correct.
How did you find your way? There's a tiny delay, by the way, just for the listeners. So we're so far away from each other in geography, but really here together. A very supportive group of people around you. Just really appreciated your sharing, Riham. How did flash fiction find its way to you as a genre? Can you
Yeah.
say something about that personal issue, but also maybe not everybody here may be that familiar with genre because it hasn't really been around that long, or maybe it's been around and people haven't acknowledged it as its own genre.
Yes, it is. Well, I have to say I just stumbled on it, and it does exist in classical works, but it didn't have the naming, flash fiction. It was often called the short story,
Okay.
sudden fiction. Brief stories have always been very, I don't know, I've been drawn to them because I kind of find the rhythm that is there in poetry as well. You share that, the musicality, the rhythm, music. And to be honest, I just discovered Flash in 2016, and I started pursuing it seriously in 2018. So it's very new to me and very new in general. I don't think that the conception of flash fiction started in the way we recognize it today before the 80s. I mean, there was no flash fiction as we know it before the 80s in terms of definition. But the short story has been there for over 100 years. Plenty of example in classics. Ernest Hemingway's most famous 6-word story, Red Boots for Sale. And what I found releasing is how it did help me let go. It helped me bring a lot of that trauma from my subconscious. That was quite, that was that, like a superpower, discovering a superpower, to be honest.
You found it in English? So have you, were you writing in English prior?
Yes.
Okay. So, and reading
Yeah.
in English, right? And reading English fiction and other things. And so, this is, the English is the primary language you use for your creative writing.
Yes, true. And to be honest, English, I'm much better in English than I am in my mother tongue, to be honest. I grew up in Dubai, in the Gulf, and I spent my childhood there and went to international American schools there. So I was schooled by British and Americans, and to be honest, I felt freer when I spoke English. I wasn't judged as much. Family didn't really understand what I was saying. So I had a lot of freedom in terms of English. Unlike Arabic, lots of restrictions, lots of you can't do that, you can't do this, oppression, to be honest. So it was just natural to use English as my primary way of expression. So I've always been reading and writing in English ever since I was, in my teens.
And so what makes you want to teach? I know that teaching Flash is really important to you. And I'm curious about what inspires you so to teach Flash to English speaking people, Flash fiction.
Well, as you know, Kelly, my latest course with that I've been teaching with the TLAN has been focusing on the subconscious. I mean, there are lots of courses out there teaching flash fiction in terms of structure, in terms of storytelling. For me, I try to dig deeper. Yes, it's about telling a story, but it's also about digging into the elements, that pot, that melting pot, that point where stories come out. Usually stories come out sometimes from unresolved issues that we need to deal with. Sometimes we're courageous enough to write them as they've happened. Sometimes we need to hide behind the veil of fiction. A lot of the stories I just read have events that have happened to me personally or have happened to my family, and it's not always possible to speak about that or to express that or to even face yourself with that. So fiction helps. And the beautiful thing about Flash is that it focuses on a moment, a very specific moment in time. A lot could happen in a moment. A lot is happening in a moment. And a lot has happened in a moment. And sometimes that moment is the entirety of who you are. That moment when you experience something, when you repressed something, when you had to face something you're not ready for, it's that moment. And that's why I felt the need to go deeper into that moment in terms of the subconscious. And I crafted my last workshop with this perspective, with this goal in mind, to just dig deeper. It's an offering for people to bond and to tell the stories, but it's always an offering to look down, look deep, look into those moments, those linked moments that probably defines who we are. A lot of people define themselves based on those events that happened in their lives. And I just wanted to say that you created that narrative, you created that storyline, and you can unfurl it, you can rewrite it. Just discover those moments. Once you discover the moments, you can free yourself. And this is basically what I did. So this was why I wanted to teach flash fiction, to be honest.
Well, Riham, thank you for that. And I know Jen is putting in the chat room some upcoming opportunities to write with you, but I want to talk about how remarkable it is just what I know of you and it's brief conversations we've had across the miles, that there's no support group. There's no support really for your writing in Egypt. That's your peers are English speaking, your colleagues, your writing, your literary community is English speaking. And in fact, that's where you publish. You're published in primarily English speaking journals. And so could you just talk about that for a minute? And then someone else asked a question in the chat room about what's the poetry community like in Egypt. So maybe just as we're closing up the conversation part, I could talk to you all day, but maybe you could just talk a little bit about the literary community as it exists in where you live.
Well, unfortunately, we did have a thriving literary community maybe 100 years ago, back in the 1920s and 1930s. But somehow things really elapsed in the 70s with the fundamental Islamic thoughts, and I don't know, people just started turning in everything in about God. What you write should not go against the interpretation of religious texts. And so basically, I mean, there is a writing community, of course, basically in Arabic language, but they write for fun. We don't have any legitimate publishers here in Egypt. I mean, it's all vanity publisher. You have to pay in order to get published, and we're not really a reading culture, unfortunately. And I did try to teach, I did teach short story writing and creative writing in Egypt back in 2017 and 2018, but it's just that the culture itself, people always, I think that's something that a lot of people could feel and resonate with. Writers are never taken seriously. And when they do have an impact and they get heard, it's just, they always kind of like have to drag religion into it. And you have someone who wants to cut your throat, So there is no support, and you have to be very careful with what you express or what you share in the community or in the culture, especially if you're a female. And there's just so many restrictions, and there is really no freedom of expression, no freedom of anything, to be honest. So I found that lacking, but not for long. Like I said, I'm very grateful that I do write in English, my second language, and I found a lot of support with various organizations and various writer groups. And unfortunately, if you go through my friend list in Facebook or different platforms, you won't really find Arab-speaking friends, or all my peers, all my groups are basically English speak.
Thank you. I had said we were going to wrap up, and I do want to have this, give you a chance to briefly answer this other question here that did come into the chat room before we move to the open mic, Riham. Anna is asking, why isn't it called flash nonfiction or flash memoir, since it's based on true events that happened in life, not on fiction?
Well, memoir is memoir, nonfiction is nonfiction. The only difference is the word count. Flash is about the word count. A flash fiction piece is a story under 1,000 words. That's the maximum you can hit. And likewise with creative nonfiction or memoir, it's a piece that is under 1,000 words. So that's what makes it flash, basically, in terms of definition. But if we talk technical, well, that would need a whole lot more time to discuss. But basically, it's the word count for now.
Okay, yes, that you're not attempting to present the work that you create as fiction, as memoir or personal story. It's fiction. It may be based, inspired, or drawn from your life or your subconscious, from real experiences, but you are not naming it as, okay, this is my memoir, my personal of what happened.
No. I'm working on my memoir.
Working on a memoir, wonderful.
That is coming.
But you're creating.
Yeah, but this is fiction. Yeah, because because I talk about different characters from different parts of the world. It's not just Egypt. It's Egypt and the entire Middle East, and even characters in the US, characters in Australia. I talked about an honor killing that happened in Australia. So it's fiction. It's fiction that is based on truth. I think all stories are somehow find their seeds in truth.
Okay, well, we could keep talking. I would love to, but we're going to move to the open mic, and I'm going to be turning off the recording. But Riham, this is just really very wonderful and generous of you. We hope you'll, despite the hour, hang in and hear our open mic, and maybe we'll get a chance to say goodbye to you at the end. Jen did put in the chat room a couple of upcoming opportunities. You're going to be teaching a new flash course for the Transformative Language Arts Network in November. But in the meantime, you're having another event in September for Transformative Language Arts that's free and open to the public, that anybody can attend, where you're going to actually have writers from your Writing from the Subconscious class of writing flash fiction, going to present some of the stories that they wrote during the class. And so that, that's going to be exciting too. So and there'll be another open mic with that, but that's another chance coming up on September 15th. online at same time,
Yeah.
7 to 8:30, I believe. And the link is in the chat room if anybody thinks they would like to attend. And it's a chance to really hear the work you're doing with writers in this. So wonderful. Thank you,
I'm
Riham.
so proud. I'm so proud and excited. Thank you.
Well, we're delighted. We hope you had a chance now to just relax a little bit, listen, but also get a chance to check out the all the comments that are in the chat room for you to read. And now let me check in with you, Katerina, and I'm going to say thank you for listening to our listeners who are going to listen on YouTube.